What is going on, guys, and welcome back here to Pitbull Audio. My name is Abel Hernandez, and I am sitting next to, of course, Dave Friedman from Friedman Amplification and Steve Stevens. What's going on, guys?
Hey, how are you? Pleasure to be here.
Doing well. Thank you guys for taking the time to do this. I'm sure you guys are very busy guys, so we appreciate it.
Dave did the driving and bought the coffee. That was the deal.
Perfect. Leading us right into our first question. How did this whole friendship start? How did this begin?
What year was that?
Yeah, pretty much. I lived in Los Angeles 25 years, and I pretty much met you from the time I moved out to LA.
Right.
And you kind of resurrected and cleaned up my existing
we made a
system.
pedal board, I think, for you first because you were simplifying your life at the time.
I had moved from New York and had the 80s rig, the monolithic, the NASA space station.
Right.
And it's still pretty formidable, the Billy Idol version. But Dave kind of went through it. And I was always, because I did the wet, dry, wet thing, that was like the thing us guitar players were doing in the 80s. But it sounded a bit synthetic the way I had it. And I would, I said to Dave, how can we make it, I still want all the effects, but how can we make it sound organic? And lo and behold.
So I think we started with a pedal board and we got there. And then I think I made a sort of a promise. I go, look, I think I can build you a rack that won't, color your tone or won't do anything like that for you. And if you don't have to pay for it.
Oh.
If I don't, you paid.
I paid because it worked,
Right.
Yeah. And the litmus test was always, I plug straight into the amp.
Okay.
All right, that's what it sounds like, and then go through the effects. Okay. And up until working with Dave, it never sounded the same. It was always, you benefited from the effects, but you really were, the original guitar tone was never as good as it was plugging in. So it was a revelation, and then we've worked together ever since.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. So leading me into the obviously probably most repetitive question you get to hear every time you do an interview. When are we going to get some more Idol Stevens? When is that going to happen?
Yeah, absolutely. We've just been writing, and we're really excited about some of the new tunes. And originally the plan was to do an EP. Let's find a little window where we can do 4 songs.
Right.
But it's gone so well that I think now we're thinking, well, hell, we'll do an album. I can't say who we're working with, but it's been a really good combination of people to work on.
Wow, that's exciting.
That's going to be and big. It's rocking. It sounds like classic Billy Idol, but it's definitely guitar oriented. We're trying to do everything with guitars as opposed to technology and keyboards and things. So it's a little bit of a return to what we started doing.
That's pretty cool.
That's
I'm
great.
sure rock and roll is going to be very happy to have you.
Yeah, I hope so.
So, question for you: what is the process you guys go through when you are designing an amplifier for any one artist? How does that process work?
I guess it's sort of different for every artist, maybe. But how did it start with us exactly? How did that work?
Is that like sit in a room and listen and I'll tweak?
I had my favorite Plexi Marshall. And it was not really. It was a great sounding amp, and Dave kept it alive. But I'd use it for recordings, and that's the amp that I recorded, Top Gun with, and Whiplash Smile, and the Michael Jackson track. Right. So had a great history to it, but it was temperamental, and I think the challenge was, can we build something that sounds as good as that, and still has that inherent gain structure, but is roadworthy and what else would you? Yeah,
more modern features like a lead channel where you don't need a lead boost into the front of it, or the clean channel also to get it sparkly,
and
bright,
Dave
clean.
I will say Dave's master volume was the first time, and I was in a cover band, 1978, and nobody, and I used Hiwatts and Marshalls, and back then nobody could make an amp sound as good, with a master volume. They just hadn't figured it out. And I was always skeptical. And Dave, it was a revelation. He put a master volume in the first prototype, and it was like, oh my God, it sounds great.
That's the same all the way up from the time. So yeah, I mean, we worked together and we sat in the room when I got a prototype up, and then kind of tweaked components and stuff. And yeah, I like that. Okay, great. And that's generally how most of the time this works. Kind of start with a bass, and then you tweak and find out what they want, make something, and then get it close, and then sit down with the artist and
Is there any
through
artist
and
you
tweak.
couldn't like get in the room and sit across from to actually form the sound? Has there ever been like a distance thing where you have to figure it out from far away to kind of get these things shipping and
No,
stuff
most
like
of the
that?
time I've had
get 'em all in?
someone there. Yeah.
That's cool. I'd
Mhm.
imagine that's
Yeah,
super,
yeah.
super helpful.
Yeah, it's way helpful. Yeah, it's really helpful too with a guy like Steve. He can describe to me what he wants
Right.
very articulately, so I can really understand. I get it. I get it when he says, "Yeah, I kind of want it like more blah, whatever."
Yeah. Sometimes the
I-
intangibles are
you
kind of
know,
hard to.
And I go, "Oh, I know what you mean."
Most of the time.
Most of the time,
Yeah. I mean, at least, for making records for so long, I know what frequencies are now
Right,
from
right.
mixing or whatever. And I can usually say, yeah, I'm lacking down at around 120. I need that song,
Yeah.
rather than saying more bottom, Dave, I can actually say, like when we did the first SS prototype, it was a matter of where the bottom should be, not just, well, I want it to be, I want to
Right,
have
fatter
lots of
and
bass,
Well, you wanted it fatter on the single note stuff.
Exactly.
That's what you were interested in.
That's exactly
So,
it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. So obviously a lot has gone on in the world of gear, music and stuff like that. Is there any type of gear coming out right now that either one of you guys are particularly excited about that's kind of, being driven by technology and all the changes in music? Amplifier, guitar, any type of one specific thing that's kind of cool now that wasn't available before?
I think we're in, as speaking as the elder statesman of guitar, we're in a great, there's never been more great gear available
I
to
agree,
people. And some of it quite affordable, and how to use these tools, because when I was, just coming up, it's like, yeah, you could get a Marshall or something, but you had to find somebody, or you had to go see a band and see how they were using it. And
Right.
now you go on YouTube and you can,
Oh, yeah.
and there's always everybody will look at it before even me, I'll look at a demo of somebody playing it before I'll buy it and go, okay, I see how I can apply that to. And Dave's always got good people doing his demos.
Yeah, I think that the demo thing, for people is fantastic because they can kind of see what this gear sounds like.
You've got Fluff,
and
something like
or
that.
whoever, Fluff, Pete Thorne, or
Right.
who, all our other Sean Tubbs and all our other people that we use, that
What
do fantastic.
Yeah, but how would you say that modern technology applies to? Because what you're doing has been around since
Modern technology. I don't know. I don't know if modern technology necessarily applies
Right,
to
that's what
the
I-
tube
yeah.
amp.
So let's say this. So you're an amp builder. In the world of amplifiers, is there anything that's gone on since you've been
his
building
line
that?
of- well, he's,
You're like,
he
I
does
keep
guitars
going
and
backwards.
pedals,
I want to
right.
go backwards.
You want to go
know?
backwards.
Yeah.
And for a lot of things, in some respects, I'd like to go backwards. I mean, I actually think with all the advances we have in audio now, I actually think it sounds worse.
Right.
I think in your 70s and 80s, you had a stereo system that you'd have at your house with a receiver.
Mhm.
If you get one of those receivers today and just plug anything into it
Mhm.
through a good pair of speakers and listen to it, you're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
that sounds amazing.
Mm.
And fat and full bodied. And the thing is, with advances in electronics, you have better A to D and D to A converters and different things, but the art of the audio circuitry surrounding it is lost.
Right.
So now they
That's
cheap
different,
out there. So
Yeah, I remember a perfect example was my systems are always changing effects and even amp switching via MIDI.
Right.
And I said to you, well, what's involved in doing a MIDI amp? And you were really clear about once you introduce MIDI into an amp, it changes.
yeah, it depends on what we were talking about. If it's just purely channel switching, maybe not, but
Right.
switching pot values,
Right,
and different
exactly.
things like
That's
that,
right.
which would be great to do.
Right.
But there's compromises.
Right. Exactly.
There's compromises to it, and fundamentally, we're a analog audio company.
Right.
Right.
So, but advances in recording equipment and recording gear and computers and everything that has helped musicians.
And
greatly
it's
because
also
you can sit
multiplied them
home.
exponentially. Yeah. So in terms of who can record their stuff now and put demos out and things like that.
correct. Although then there's some audio engineering arts that have been lost along the way also.
And everybody's also an audio engineer.
Yeah,
now.
which
All
is
the
not
mixing,
necessarily-
mastering, yeah.
If you've ever been around a great one, it's
Yeah.
not true.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's pretty clear if you get
Yeah.
into it far enough, you'll know. Yeah.
Yeah. There's still nothing that will replicate putting a halfway decent microphone in front of a speaker cabinet, good guitar and a good amp, and capturing it that way. It's this, and then
I think everybody's trying to get as far away from that now as possible because it's almost so difficult for people to.
it's a tactile.
People are so intimidated by that.
And
thought.
it's not just, as guitar players, the way it feels under your fingers and the way it interacts with your ears and compression and gain structure and everything involved from the get-go. I mean, when we did Rebel Yell, if I didn't have that guitar sound to begin with, we could have never written it. So, you're talking from the ground up, and then you're designing the song to fit the sound.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's a whole process for us.
Inspires you to come up with the part that you came up with.
And I use some modeling things to do things quickly, always knowing, I mean, it's like the little, snack at the beginning that I know if that's going to end up on a record, I'm going to wheel in the amp and we're going to mic it, and that's going to be the payoff.
Definitely. So obviously segueing from that and the changes in gear, what are you guys excited about in rock world today? Like what excites you guys about where rock is right now in 2019?
I think I think you're like you talk.
Well,
it's starting to come back a little bit. I'm seeing beginnings of it coming back with bands like Greta Van Fleet or this or that. Love them, hate them, whatever your thoughts are on them. What it is doing is introducing maybe a former era of music to young people.
Right.
And they're really digging it. They don't know who Led Zeppelin is. Right. They don't even care.
It's crazy to even think that.
Yeah. But it's true. And they don't even care. And the funny thing is I went to their concert at the Palladium several months ago or something, and I went because they're using a couple of my DI boxes I have, and I knew the guitar tech, so we went, and they were great. They performed great. It's like they've been touring a lot, and it's like a seasoned band now, and it was a great show to watch. It was really good, and hopefully that opens the door for a lot of other bands. And I haven't seen other ones. There's another band from Los Angeles or somewhere in Southern California, Dirty Honey or something. I saw.
Exactly.
And then there's a couple others I saw on a festival I was at recently working that were definitely in the vein of a straight up rock band.
Yeah. Right. I think there's a lot of those,
It's also very different in other parts of the world than it is in the States. In the States, terrestrial radio is not still, doesn't. It's pop music.
Yeah, I'd say.
And the States aren't. You go to Europe and it's whole summer is filled with festivals, big rock festivals, and same in South America, Mexico. We just toured in Mexico with Billy Idol, and it was insane. I mean, we played 60,000 people a night, and the fans, and everywhere you go in the world, the fans now with the internet get the information as quickly.
Oh yeah.
It used to be that they, we'd play Russia, and it's like they had to smuggle in the records.
Right. Yeah.
Eastern Germany, but now they're getting the same information, so they're, definitely is a real healthy rock and roll, guitar oriented music scene happening in the rest of the world, and I see it starting to turn a little bit, mostly from females.
Right.
Half of all new guitar players are females now, which is great.
That reflects on Instagram too. You see that every day.
It's great because I grew up. I got an acoustic guitar when I was 7.5 and didn't get an electric till I was 13. So I was playing folk music, and it was all Lauren Ear, Joni Mitchell, Carole King. It was a lot of female-driven stuff. Right. And it's healthy, man. It's that's kind of. If the next super guitar hero is a female, all the better.
Yeah, so, definitely. Leading me right into my next question, flamenco go-go. How was that different from, how did you approach recording that? How was it different from just pure rock guitar?
That came about. I'd recorded a record with Vince Neil, and we went out on the road and we supported Van Halen, and it was the ultimate rock guitar night. And I had to do, Vince goes, "Hey man, you got to do a guitar solo." And I go, "Yeah, but Ed's going to come up and do eruption. Ed's going to come up with his erection." And so I said, "I can't do that, And I went, oh, but I can do this Spanish guitar solo thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So each night I do, I had a Gibson Chet Atkins nylon guitar, and I do my Spanish guitar solo, and fans really reacted well to it. Well, come the end of the tour, this is the height of 80s or early 90s success or whatever,
Right.
and I couldn't play any faster, I couldn't play any louder. I had just, I needed to like rediscover why I was doing this. And I went to see Paco de Lucia at the Woolton Theater. It was like 3,000 people. And I was like, man, what this guy is doing is so technically brilliant, but nobody even realizes it because there's melody and there's emotion and there's great tunes. So I contacted Miles Copeland, who is the manager of the Police and Sting,
Mm-hmm.
and he was involved in world music a lot. And I went over to France. He had a songwriters retreat every year. And I went over and worked with some Algerian musicians. And actually, at the time I was there, Jeff Beck was there.
Oh, really?
Working with Stuart Copeland on a record that was never released.
Oh, wow.
But and Jeff was actually at dinner each night. We'd play tracks because you had to record a song each day. And Jeff gave me encouragement. He said, it's really cool that you're doing Spanish guitar. I said, Jeff, I'm not picking up an electric guitar for a year. And he was like, yeah, do your own thing, find your own way on something. So from there, I went to Bordeaux in France and worked with some percussionists. Then I went to England, worked with Harold Jones, who had written when people started to find out I was doing this Spanish guitar record, they started sending me tracks.
Oh, wow.
So it was really cool. It was a way to rediscover why I picked up the instrument. Because when I started, my first really good guitar teacher that I identified with was flamenco teacher.
Oh, wow.
He was the guy that he and his brother escaped the Nazis in the Second World War. He's a Romanian gypsy. And he had such love for the instrument. And he said the only thing that he escaped with was his guitar. And I immediately went, well, I want music to mean as much to me as it does to this guy.
Okay.
So flamenco was always like, and it's still, there's some blinding players, keeps getting better.
Definitely. From a guitar player's question, from a guitar player's standpoint, the way you pick it, did you start the flamenco by picking it? And is that where you developed that amazing alternate picking, just, chop, or was that something that came later?
Well, yeah, I mean, flamenco players obviously play with their fingers.
That's why I was asking, yeah.
And it wasn't until McLaughlin and Dimiola did the record with Paco de Lucia, it's called Saturday Night in San Francisco, that it was accepted to do Spanish guitar, but not finger style. My alternate picking thing came from my love of Steve Howe from Yes.
Okay.
Because as much as I loved, Clapton and all these guys, it was very blues based. And here I was a kid who had taken some flamenco lessons, lots of folk, stuff like Leo Kottke, and the folk thing was really, really big in New York at that time. And so this is just before I get an electric guitar. So I get an electric guitar and I'm like into the Who, and I've got a little bit of my dad played me Wes Montgomery records. And I'm like, well, how does this have anything to do with being in a rock band? I mean, Jimmy Page was kind of the only one pushing using Eastern, and then I hear Steve Howe from Yes, and in the context of, I remember first time I heard Roundabout, it's classical guitar intro. Then on that record, he's playing jazz and all these different, right inside of one song, and he was an alternate picker. He he had no distortion. Right. And I want to always, I don't want to be at the mercy of sustain.
Right.
I always want to be able to because that's the other thing is, the more distortion and the more of that, when it comes time to record, the producer's always going, clean up your guitar sound, because it's almost like white noise in the track. Right. So if you can play a solo and pick it, right, it's that Angus Young thing of every note is,
I think there's so much discipline required to really pull that off well, that now it's like, when in doubt, legato. It's like, if you fear for your life for the next part, just don't worry about it.
But I love Alan Holdsworth as well.
Just bring it down.
But to me, it was like, and then of course, with Billy Idol, with the whole kind of underpinning of punk rock, you had to have that right hand technique to, play like Johnny Ramone or whatever. Right. Yeah. So it came in handy having a good right hand technique. All
right, last question for you, Dave. Oh, go ahead.
Well, also the right hand technique is where the sound comes from, your tone.
The attack, yeah.
Really, the attack. I think it's all about the right and how you mute and palm mute and everything else.
A lot of people don't know that until they go to
all
record
about
something,
that.
and they can't figure out why it just doesn't sound that good.
And yeah, and for if you're a guitar player that works with a singer that you're in a band with, when that singer hears you mute up under the verse where it's dynamically, it works.
Right.
Whereas if you're always, there's no room for the singer.
Yeah, dynamics are
You're
very
not
important.
telling the same story. So.
Is there anything you are currently excited about with Friedman? Is there anything that you're working on that?
Well, we can't say.
There's
There's some stuff coming with NAMM, new amp and a few other little tidbits, and then we're also doing an updated version of Steve's amp.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
nice.
So we have one here today.
Yeah, I've taken it out on the road with. I have a band with Geezer Butler and Matt Sorum and Frankie Perez called Deadland Ritual, and that's the new Friedman setup that I have and we just toured with the new SS Deluxe, which is mind-blowingly good.
SS100 V2.
Yeah. It still has the inherent clean channel, doesn't it?
Yeah, it has. It's basically took from the original amp, but then the lead channel has a separate gain and master, and it's tweaked a little bit from the original. The tones of it are tweaked a little bit from the original, so it's a little.
I'll be there. I can't wait to
freshened up and
It sounds
updated.
awesome. It really does.
Awesome. Cool. Well, gentlemen, those are all my
Excellent.
questions. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Thank
Great.
you.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
guys for joining us for this interview. From all of us here at Pitbull Audio, we'll catch you guys on the next video.